Hello there! Caught me in the middle of a TCG game. Let's move on to something more interesting, eh? The curse of immortality placed upon pure-blooded Conrians. What exactly is it, and why does it keep haunting the narrative? Welcome to the lore den, where I'll share my own random theories and thoughts as we go. The curse of immortality has come up multiple times within Genshin Impact's long history, mainly during what I like to call the Bowkeeper quests. But nowadays, it creeps into almost any conversation regarding Conria, the main example being the traveler in Paimon thinking that Tolindis is still alive during the Not Cry Act 3 Archon quest. It was a short moment, but it made me think this is about to become an increasingly more important plotline than before as we approach Act 8 of Teyvat's chapter storyline. I decided to make a deep dive video on the Curse of Immortality. In this video, I want to explore a few ideas. What is the Curse of Immortality? Simply put, it is a curse that spiritually and physically keeps you immortal, but at the cost of physical comfort through rot, heavy air quote, and erosion. You can't die physically because you will recover from all of your injuries and your body will essentially rebuild itself. All pure-blooded Conrians are what we would consider undead, though not literally in fantasy settings. The being who cannot be killed, the person you watch get shot with a cannon yet walks casually with a hole in their stomach, stuff like that. At the same time, your spirit is likewise immortal. In a similar case as with the body, and though we have witnessed it less than the former, the curse of immortality will also keep you from losing yourself, your mind essentially, to forms outside of erosion. Which is really interesting because it drives home the point of erosion being inevitable for every long-lived being in Teyvat. Consider it like being Balder in Norse mythology, which, conveniently, is what Conria is inspired from. Balder was the child of Frigg, who secured oaths from almost all beings to never bring harm upon her child. Sound familiar? Well, not really, but I'm sure there's a connection somewhere. In Balder's story, the thing that kills him is a mistletoe dart thrown by his blinded brother Höder, who was tricked by Loki. Likewise, in Genshin, we know that the curse of immortality can be bypassed and even removed, which results in instantaneous death. Now, what I find fascinating, an aspect that hasn't shown up yet, is Balder's return to Midgard after Ragnarok. Perhaps the curse of immortality really is meant to keep Conrians from entering the cycle of rebirth and reincarnation, as we know that this is a thing that Genshin has confirmed somewhat, at least in that plan. I don't remember any other cases, though it's been a while. Now, onto the Curse of Wilderness. So, we know that while pure-blooded Conrians got cursed with the Curse of Immortality, and because Celestia decided to be petty, whoever was half Conrian would be cursed with the Curse of the Wilderness, turning them into hilichurls. This was for forsaking the gods of their lands and basically abandoning them for Conria, a type of treason in the gods' eyes, I assume. As far as I can see, the Curse of the Wilderness actually has many similarities to the Curse of Immortality, with the form of physical torment the cursed endure being the sole main differentiator between the two. Now, technically speaking, from an outsider's perspective, the Curse of the Wilderness is unnecessary, bluntly speaking. But to be fair, if I were a godly entity observing and treating a world I've barged into like a management simulator, I also wouldn't want the common people seeing cursed immortals walking around, messing with the knowledge the people have. The Curse of the Wilderness then seems to be a way to punish all Conrians without the cost of causing panic due to forbidden knowledge. An interesting difference between the two curses is that the latter, the people affected by the Curse of the Wilderness, actually are capable of, well, death. So that means that they are not immortal, but rather they have long lifespans. You know, typically punishments are supposed to have a type of lesson, but so far there's not really been a lesson for the people of Conria to learn other than Celestia sucks. But the cause of the hilichurls' deaths, or at least any abyssal creature that exists because of the curse, seems to actually be erosion. Kind of. Bear with me here because we're jumping into murky waters regarding what that even means. We know that Zhongli once said that erosion is an inescapable force imposed by the heavenly principles, so we know that this is not technically a naturally occurring phenomena in Teyvat's cycle. His statement actually makes sense if we look at it from the perspective that Celestia always acts with the intent to limit the world of Teyvat and its inhabitants. Think vision bearers potentially paying a big price for the power they wield upon their deaths, celestial nails, and the cataclysm itself. You can't make use of infinite time to gain power when you really don't have infinite time and clarity of mind, after all. Judging by the timeline, it takes only 500 years for long-lived individuals to start losing themselves, excluding special individuals like the Geo-Archon, Electro-Archon, Anemo-Archon, etc., who take far longer. Now, what about how the curse manifests? We've somewhat experienced the existential manifestations of the curses, but let's see how you spot a cursed Conrian. Starting with the Curse of Immortality, perhaps the biggest giveaway is the rot, heavy quotation marks, that spreads on their body. Think Dainsleif's arm. Okay, technically speaking, that's not even entirely said out loud in the game, and we can only guess, but look at his arm, his boot, his neck, and tell me that exists there by choice. I won't hold my breath. And once again, though it hasn't been officially stated in a blunt sense, we're somewhat spoon-fed the vibes that this curse does actually cause some sort of deformation, or some kind of monstrous transformation. Think of demi-humans, for example. A demi-human, by its very definition, is a type of creature, race, existence that strongly resembles humans in appearance, like, potentially, the captain himself, but we'll get to him later. Now, as for those affected by the Curse of the Wilderness, let's see just how bad we should feel about the monsters we encounter in the game. We've got Hilitrolls, Abyss Mages, and I think Lectors and Priests. Though, that could also be what the deformation for the pure-blooded Conrians might be. Alright, so we've established how these things work, now let's see if we can break them from the inside out. And considering that both, maybe, of these curses came from Ronova, the ruler of death, and if her powers are rules in and of themselves, then they can be fought back against. Starting with the Curse of Immortality, there are a few ways to gain relief from it. The obvious option is the upside-down fountain and the upside-down ruins in the chasm, which are conveniently made in Conrian architecture. I know Dainsleif said that they don't typically build upside down, but wouldn't it be cool if Conrians were like bats? Ahem. The power from the fountain weakens the effects of the Curse of Immortality, basically acting as a sort of relief from physical pain that they endure on the constant, though that seems to be the only form of relief it can grant. The other is so far unexplained, and I believe it has been intentionally swept under the rug by the timeline of events, to make us players think of it less. Maybe. Of course, I'm talking about outright removing the Curse of Immortality. We know a lot of power is required to do so, and doing so would instantly kill the Conrian in question, which isn't ideal if we want playable Conrians. We don't know how Clothar Alberich was able to remove the Curse of Immortality, but we do know that people like Skirk might be able to do so given a huge amount of power and it being like a one-person type of deal. So far, there's only been a brute-forced ways to get through the curse. Of course, there's the captain's way of essentially turning himself into a battery for life force, while his soul leaves his body and fuses with the Lord of the Night. I'm not exactly sure which one of the two parts, or if both fuse with her. It's a technical question, yes, but it could be the key to him returning. Or not, but I still maintain hope. Anyway, so far, the Shade's powers live up to the name. As for the Curse of the Wilderness, this one so far has been more durable than the Curse of Immortality. Either that, or nobody's really trying to break it. But regardless, the only way we've seen this curse be affected is by a person's consciousness being restored to the God of Wisdom's power. And even then, that's kind of the only change that happens. They remain as Hilitrolls otherwise, and what would even happen to the affected if the curse got lifted? Would they also die instantly? Has the curse replaced them enough to the point it has become vital to their existence? So the verdict on the rules being circumvented is yesn't. There's really no great way to compete with the power of a Shade, unfortunately. But that doesn't mean getting rid of both curses is entirely off the table. But why do these curses even exist? And why at such a large scale? Why punish an entire nation for the crimes of 5 sinners plus their king? Many theories fly around this topic, like the souls of the people have been corrupted, so they shouldn't return to the ley lines, or there is some plan that Celestia has regarding Conria and its citizens. And honestly, with Genshin, everything seems to somehow be important, so I could see it. But what if they just did it because they're gods? In our travels across the 7 nations of Tevat, we've seen so many times how the concept of gods being out of touch with the worlds and lives of mortals being explored, mainly in Inazuma, Sumeru, Fontaine, kind of, Liyue, and kind of Mondstadt. But that's nitpicking. The only one of the Archons who has not had this happen to them in the story is Mawika, the Pyro Archon of Natlan, who is a human. But then, so are the other gods. Not literally, but they're humane. This means that they're vulnerable to the same arrogance, fickleness, pride, and wrath that we mortals are. There's being above it all, and then there's thinking you're above it all. And Celestia clearly falls into the latter. Think of the myth about Arachne, who challenged Athena to a weaving contest and beat her. and then got transformed into a spider because Athena was being a sore loser. Celestia has been so distant and so disconnected from the mortal realm that they've essentially given into the echo chamber of arrogance and superiority. They punished all of Khaenri'ah under rule of collective responsibility alone. It's unfair, but humane gods rarely ever are. And that is one possible answer as to why all of Khaenri'ah got punished for the actions of a few. Of course, it was also a bit more complicated than that. We can't entirely vilify Celestia, as we haven't even been there yet. And they have a track record of trying to, protect Tevat in its own way. Now, we've hit the time limit on what we can explore on this first video of mine, frankly, because I can't think of anything else, so I will now return to the captain for a little treat, and share what I think lies under the mask before we end. Lights, camera, action! The captain lifted his hand to his mask, a dark fog whirling around his head as it dissipated the moment he took it off. The traveler in Paimon's eyes widened in unison. Under the mask lies a man who looked deeply tired. His skin was entirely in the shade of deep blue, much like Dainsleif's arm, shining blue cracks veins all around. His dry, intensely bloodshot blue eyes drew attention to how deeply sunken they were. Hundreds of years of lack of sleep have turned what was once a proud knight into a horrifying sight. Staring at him was like staring into an abyss, which beheld only two blue orbs of light deep inside, a void where a person should be, but beneath all that was just a man, tired and worn out. And that was that. What do you think? Thank you for watching my video to this point, and I promise and hope that my next one will be better. Bye bye!